Hey guys, welcome back to my channel and welcome to finally a desk video. I'm sitting at my desk. I wanted to do my makeup with you and chit chat a little bit about life and yeah, just check in. I have talked to you from my bed, which is in that direction, about all of the new stuff going on in the new year, and now it's time to just sit back and relax and just enjoy the new year. I'm gonna start by using my We Makeup lip plumper. If I miss saying any of the products that I've been using, I will link them in the description box below, just so you know. And I'm gonna be talking a little bit of updates about the babies and how I'm doing. So let's start with the babies. I think I had made a get ready with me catching you up on twin pregnancy and how that went, and I never really posted it because I went into the hospital and never left at some point. So that was quite unexpected, and I just never got to editing it, and then I forgot I had it, and I just decided to continue filming and posting without adding that in because I had already updated everybody on Instagram that the babies were born. So I didn't really, I don't know, maybe it's a missed opportunity because a lot of questions and things that I had discussed in DMs were actually in that video. But if we just go from the point of I was pregnant, I was 35 weeks pregnant, I went into my checkup, just a regular checkup for twin pregnancies. You get checked much more often than a normal pregnancy. I had to go do sonograms or echographies, depending on what language you speak. That's what they would call, or scans. Every 2 weeks I had to go in, and they would check the growth of the babies and how the blood was going through their brains, and if they were doing well. That is mainly the thing. Twins have a lot of more complications and risks than normal pregnancies, so I was really well checked out. By the way, I'm using my new Glaminatrix Nearly natural palette, and I have thoughts and things to talk about it. But at this checkup, I actually told my gynecologist that I was getting some headaches, and in the last 2 days before that appointment they were quite hard to deal with, so I was really just on the couch, couldn't really function very well, and she made me go to get checked, like a full blood check, urine check, because one of the biggest risks is preeclampsia or eclampsia, so high blood pressure, protein in your urines, and then your body pretty much, the babies are fine maybe, but your body pretty much is poisoning itself. And that's actually how it's called in Dutch. It's called pregnancy poisoning. And what came out of that, of those tests, is that the babies were doing really well, no problems there, but my body was kind of giving up on this pregnancy. So I had elevated or off numbers for my liver and for my kidneys, and that meant that we had a choice to either take the babies out immediately with a C-section the day, or since my values were not super worrying to a point where I was risking my life, let's say, it was still quite okay. They thought we still had some time to play with to induce the birth and try naturally. Since one of the babies was head down, we decided to try naturally. So I went in at 11 o'clock in the morning for a checkup, and I was induced at 3 p.m. So that was a little bit of a shock for both me and my husband, and we really needed to work that through that before we started the process. And in the end it went okay, because that day itself I just was in the hospital, sat there quite chilled, and my husband went to, oh, this is much lighter than I expected. my husband went to pack all our stuff, arrange for our daughter to be picked up from daycare from grandparents, and just overall arrange things. And he came back in the evening, and we slept there. My contractions were really mild the whole first afternoon, so there was nothing really important, or like nothing really happened that day. And that was on a Thursday. And on Friday then they started adding synthetic hormones so that the contractions would get stronger, and the labor actually started to be a proper labor, so painful. And I got an epidural because that's a standard with twin pregnancies, which really quite shockingly or worryingly they say you should get, because if the first one comes out naturally, they will want the second one out as soon as possible. And often the doctor, the gynecologist, goes with their hand inside you to get the baby from their either foot, or usually they're if they're not both head down, they usually grab the second one by the foot and pull them out. And if you've watched enough of like Discovery Channel and Dr. Paul and where he goes and helps cows give birth, that's kind of how it looks like. Or I think that's how you actually fertilize cows, or like impregnate cows, with your hand inside, or you check if they're pregnant. I don't know. Point being, that's how I imagined it. Someone with their up to their shoulder inside me trying to grab a baby. So definitely epidural. You don't want to feel that at all. Plus I had a good experience with the epidural with my daughter. And unfortunately, again, between the synthetic hormones and the epidural, I don't know, they just didn't get the doses right for me, because I was really shaking and not having any break in between contractions, but then also not having enough painkillers to go through that. So it was really just not a pleasant point in the afternoon. And I think that was too much for my body, because I started to get a fever around 38 and something, and the babies were starting to have a bit of not problems, but their heart rates were reading different from each other, whereas they would like them to be the same. And therefore they told me, well, we are worried that there's being some problems with the babies, or that you had an infection, that you got an infection. So we recommend an emergency C-section. You can imagine my joy. The previous birth of my daughter was an emergency C-section. It was horrible. I have needed a lot of help to get through those memories, and I went to a therapist to help. I did EMDR, which is a bit like brain reprogramming, to help get through those memories. And it was my worst case scenario. Like an elective C-section would have been better than another emergency C-section. But also I really wanted just a natural birth, not unmedicated, like I'm fine with epidurals and stuff, but I really wanted a natural birth, simply for the fact that the recovery is much faster, they say. I wouldn't know, or that's what I've heard and read. The recovery is much faster, and I remember, like, my impression is that I lost the first 2 weeks of life of my daughter because I was in so much pain after the first C-section. So I wanted to avoid that at all costs. And to be honest, it was a bit of a calmer situation, and I felt better about this choice of the emergency C-section, because it was actually a problem. Like, our lives were at risk, or at least the perception was that our lives were at risk. So that was fine, and we went and had the C-section. So the babies were born on the 11th of 2022, which is quite a nice day to write. And in the Netherlands, it's also the beginning of the carnival season, and here in the south of the Netherlands, that's actually quite a big thing. So it was quite nice date of birth for the boys, and a little bit of a better experience for me compared to my first birth, but yeah, not completely what I wanted. I don't feel like I need to process the birth as much as I need to actually let go of my dream of having a natural birth, which is never going to happen again because I'm not having any more children. I am so done with babies. And yeah, so the boys were born all fine. I have two identical twins boys. They're called Mika and Luca. Luca actually was the first one and Mika was the second one. Luca was a bit smaller but did very, very well from the beginning, and then Mika instead had a little bit of help, needed a little bit of help to breathe and get going, let's say, but nothing really worrying. Within the first few minutes after birth, he was fine. We had a ginormous team in the room because you get a doctor for a gynecologist for you, nurses for both babies, doctors for both babies, the anesthesiologists and assistants, and because a ton can go wrong more than in a normal birth. So it was quite an exciting time. We were happy. We had the babies. They were doing so well and much better than expected because yeah, they were 35 weeks. A normal pregnancy goes until 40 weeks, or yeah, plus or minus 2 or 3 weeks. A full size, like a at-term baby is considered here to be at 37 weeks. Anything after 37 weeks is a healthy, happy baby. Anything before is a premature baby. And here they let you go until 42 weeks before inducing you on a singleton pregnancy. And for twins, especially identical twins, in my hospital, they were going to plan an induction anyways at 36 weeks. So they were just born a week before than they were expected to be born. And they did really well. They were just a little bit smaller, but no problems, no health problems. They were not in the NICU, not in the intensive care unit, but in the just neonatal department. They needed to be in one of these warm cases for a little bit because they needed to keep their temperature. But for the rest, they did really well, which was a relief because as a mom, I would take all the pain in the world if my kids were okay and if it meant my kids were okay. So it was quite nice. And we stayed there for 10 days, 11 days. After 11 days, they were big enough to eat the whole or drink their whole bottle and to keep their own temperature, of course, with like warm water bottles next to them and blankets. But they were big enough and well enough to just do their own thing, which was great. Those 10 days in the hospital were really good because we got to have a lot of help with feeding the boys, and it was important because I don't know, I'm not a good C-section candidate apparently, but I was in so much pain the first week. I don't know, they after C-section they want to get you walking as soon as possible. I couldn't stand up without bawling from pain, and I can take some pain, and contractions are painful, and I felt them, and I got an epidural later, and they went through the epidural, and it was very painful, and before getting the epidural it was very painful. But the pain of after a C-section is really I don't know, something else, something I never want to do again, and I now had it 2 times. But apparently the way my body is heals, yeah, I don't know, it meant I had a lot of pain. And I also, due to the poisoning that I was having before I gave birth, I couldn't get ibuprofen type of painkillers, so they only had me on paracetamol, which is, if you live in the Netherlands, you know how ridiculous it is here. Everything you have, every ailment in your life, you should be fixing with paracetamol. There is no other medicine that they recommend until you're actually like in dire need of medicine. So they just told me, yeah, just deal with paracetamol. And I had a few doses of morphine-like medicine at the beginning, but that did nothing for me. Like I don't know, morphine didn't really help me with the pain that I was having, didn't help me be able to stand up. It was miserable. I was miserable. The babies were doing great. And fast forward to now, otherwise we're gonna be here like an hour to talk about the first period of having twins and a toddler running around. But they are now 2.5 months, almost 3, and it's a challenge because you are used to kids being born full term. Andrea was born at 39 weeks, and you have a newborn phase that is tough. It's a challenge, but it lasts only so many weeks, and the kids quickly go from eating every 3 hours to eating every 4, to giving you a little bit of a break, to staying awake a little bit more without crying, and to being more interactive, smiling around 6 weeks, things like that. And these kids, because they're premature, you need to do the normal time that you expect things to happen for a normal baby and add the weeks that they're premature for. So I have to add 5 weeks to everything. If I expect the babies to smile at 6 weeks, these guys started smiling at 8, which was 2 weeks later. But I can expect them to just be more interactive after 6 plus 5, 11 weeks. So in around about now, and they are getting a little bit more responsive. But the fact that we're still on 7 feeds a day, so they're not feeding every 3 hours in the night, but during the day, yes. And it's just a lot of bottles giving, and not much else, because they drink their bottle, you burp them, you hold them a little bit vertical so that they don't get stomach pain and stuff like that, and then it's an hour further and they go back to sleep. It's not really fun. It feels like, and this is maybe controversial, but I want to put it out there because if anybody else feels like that, I want to let them know it's normal. And I know it's normal because people around me have confirmed that that's also how they felt. This first newborn phase feels like you're keeping being alive. It could be a Tamagotchi for what you get, and not much else. I mean, yes, the cuddles are nice, but being with twins means that you can't just hold your baby if he or she cries and it's all nice and you sleep together, things like that, because you have two. If the second one starts crying, you have one in your hand and the other one you're trying to shush with your hand or with a pacifier. It's a challenge. So we have not been enjoying it very much. Luckily or unfortunately, both. Luckily, we have a daughter that is growing so fast and being extremely fun to be around, and talking and jumping and running around, and she is gonna be 2 in March. So she's just at an age that I love, but also a very challenging age, because she needs attention and you have to run after her and you have to make sure she doesn't fall and hurt herself or break your house down. So it's a little bit of double. She's super fun to be with, but you need to have enough hands in house to be able to deal with all the kids. And we are in a minority with 2 adults and 3 kids. Luckily, my mom came to stay after we came back from the hospital. My mom came to stay for 3.5 weeks before Christmas, and that was otherwise would have been impossible because I was not very mobile, so I couldn't stand to cook. I couldn't really do much by myself. So luckily she was here to help a lot, and my husband took 2 weeks off from work directly after the birth to be with us in the hospital, and my parents-in-law took care of our daughter while we were in the hospital, staying, having her at their place for like 4 days a week, and 4 days she would be at home, or 3 days she would be at home with my husband and in daycare. So it was really nice, and I am glad we had the support that we had from our families, and I am glad I put the effort into arranging it. We have now a situation in which I arranged it in a way that nobody is at home alone with 3 kids for the first 6 months of the boys. So I am on maternity leave for 6 months after the birth. it's not all maternity leave. In the Netherlands, you only get 3 months or 12 weeks. But I took the extra time off. There's a construct in the Netherlands where you can get a certain amount of time paid, 70% since this year. So that's actually quite nice. After the 6 months, I will go back to work in May, and then we're gonna each have 1 day off with 3 kids. And then 1 day they will all 3 would be with my parents-in-law who come here. And that's going to be a challenge. I wanted to talk makeup in this video. We only talked babies. I hope you guys don't mind. It's a life update. But my makeup is finished. I have a full face of makeup just to stay at home and take care of my kids. But this has been really a great getaway to just sit down, do my makeup, film a few videos, do something for myself instead of for the kids, because if they feed so often and they're babies, they need you so much that you're living 100% for them. And honestly, it's okay for a few weeks, a month or a bit, but to be honest, it was just breaking me. So I'm glad to have been able to get back to it quite decently and to find my time to do this. It mainly happens in the days where my daughter's at daycare, my husband works. I am only with the twins, because then I feed them, put them to sleep, and then I can come here and do my thing. And maybe you have heard some beeps behind, but they sleep in cycles of, or babies sleep in cycles of 45 minutes, and then in between they wake up and they need to fall asleep again. Luckily they're quite good sleepers, so they manage to fall asleep again most of the time by themselves, especially in the morning, and then in the afternoon it gets a little bit more challenging. But yeah, I am glad to be back having my desk. My boys have their own bedroom now, each their own bed. And yeah, if you want to see more of that, just follow me on Instagram, and I just share that much easier there instead of doing a proper like sit down video vlog style video taking you in the boys' room. It's just much more immediate for me to share that on stories on Instagram. So I hope I'll see you there. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. If you have any questions, just let me know down below. I'm happy to discuss them. And I will be back with another Get Ready With Me to discuss the makeup, because I actually did want to discuss the makeup, but yeah, an update on the babies was way too long to also discuss makeup. So we're gonna talk about this. We're gonna talk about what I'm doing with my makeup these days and how I'm incorporating my either project pan or just new products into my routine. Enough rambling for today. Thank you so much for watching. Love you lots. Thank you for hanging out with me. And I really enjoy the interaction that we're having under the videos. It feels like I'm back with friends instead of just being in the house with babies all day long, 24/7, all the time. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in my next video. Bye guys.